Welcome back to New to Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and today I have a very special guest. Today's show will be with Austin Mayo, and Austin is somebody that I'm so excited to have on today's show and to bring so much value, because Austin was a guy who actually reached out to me before he was going to medical sales college, and it's crazy. We actually have same exact background, strength and conditioning. We know each other's experiences, and so being able to talk, see his journey through medical sales college, and then going all the way to landing a territory manager position with a medical sales company it's absolutely amazing. Again, for you guys who are listening, that doesn't happen. Most of the time it's an associate for a year or two, and then you get that opportunity to be a territory manager, that full line sales rep. And Austin was able to do it right away. And I'm so excited to have him in, share his journey, because he has an amazing journey that you guys are going to hear on this podcast, why he broke in so fast. He's a guy who's hungry. He's a guy who has impact. He's a guy who's going to make everyone better. And like we talked about, me and him were talking offline, is just have an impact on people's life, making it positive, and making this world a little better place. So excited to have you on today, Austin. Thank you for taking time out of your day to bring value to our listeners.
Hey, thanks again, Jacob. I just want to kind of touch base on, how I got into medical sales to begin with.
Yeah.
So my journey was quite, I wouldn't say it's normal, So originally I graduated this past May from East Tennessee State University. Originally was doing physical therapy. Thought that was my route, but I ended up finding out that wasn't something I really felt I wanted to do. So then I went the strength conditioner route. I actually did a internship with the University of Arkansas with the football team down there for 4 months. Got a job offer at Notre Dame out of that. But because of COVID, they put me on freeze until February. So on all them months, I was just sitting, running my business I had, and just working, saving money. But then I came across medical sales, and I was like, wow, this really interests me. And life to me is about how much impact can I bring. My goal every day is to impact one person, however that may be. I really seek that every day I wake. That's what really drives me. But I began to look into medical sales, and I came across medical sales college. So, not having any debt from college, I was like, let's do it. Let's run it. So I went to a course down in Florida, and, I kind of just jumped in it and just closed my eyes and jump with faith. And, it was 15 grand, 16 grand altogether, not counting the Airbnb. It was a pretty penny. But, my journey there, it gave me a foundation, but, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and exercise science. And, already knew the fundamentals of anatomy and how the body moves, biomechanics, and whenever I got there, that's all they were teaching us at the time. I thought going to medical sales college, I was going to learn how to sell, what's going to make me be a better sales rep, medical sales rep, and I wasn't getting that. For instance, Jacob, like we talked about, I would ask, my professors, they would say something to us, and I would ask for an example. Can you please give us an example how you would sell this particular product? And they would just give that generic answer as to wait till sales week. We'll go over that in sales week, and that's at the end of the course.
Yeah.
But it was just, I met some good people. Professors were great. They really, they were genuine people. But I felt like I didn't get out of it what I thought I was going to, so to speak. Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And just to kind of like rewind and everything, we're going to jump into medical sales college and touch on it again. But like going back into, like strength and conditioning, for everyone listening out there, like we both had that kinesiology degree. I was both going strength and conditioning, as well, was able to go with some top colleges for like internships, but you actually got a job with Notre Dame, which if any of you guys are listening, Notre Dame's not a small school and it's not a bad school, so like the fact that you were able to go with medical sales over, strength and conditioning, working at these D1 school with people that are going to be professional athletes, following that. I really just want to touch on what made you choose that medical sales route, and like, how'd you even find medical sales college? Was it just via internet? What made you commit to going to that with that? But really just touching on right now, like what made you choose medical sales? I know you said impact people, and I'm with you, like make that impact. But what made you make that switch from, hey, I'm going to go be a strength and conditioning coach and have impact on their lives, because you're working with young men and young women who are developing. And that was one reason I wanted to do to do strength and conditioning. I was like, I want to teach uh,
Yeah.
young athletes how to become great men and women, but also great athletes, but there's so much more than just lifting weights. But what made you make that switch from going to that to, hey, I'm going to go to medical sales? How'd you make that switch, and what was the reason for that?
So, with strength conditioning, it's more so, I would say it's more so like a mentorship. You're mentoring these kids and helping them grow.
Yep.
It's much bigger than just weights, but it also has a lot of meaning behind it as well. But for me, I've always been fascinated with the body and anatomy and, the OR, for instance. And that's something that's always interested me ever since I can remember. And I just felt the more I read up on it, the more I talked to people through LinkedIn, the more I gravitated towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm big in how we're aligned to certain places for a reason. And I kind of just trusted my gut, trusted my heart, and went that way.
Yeah.
So
And it's never gonna leave you the wrong way when you're trusting. You feel,
yeah,
like you have that peace. I totally know what you mean, man. And I love that because I'm with you. Like I knew, like if you guys don't know what strength and conditioning, it's working with all the athletes that go to college and beyond, professional athletes, all that. But you're making a relationship. Like you said, it was a mentorship. You're making relationships that are going to last a lifetime with these athletes. But I'll be real with what the reason I wanted to go into medical sales and I stopped the strength and conditioning. I loved strength and conditioning. I do enjoy it. It was honestly the lifestyle with it. And for me, it was something else that like I've always been that person. Like I didn't come from anything, didn't come from much. And I wanted to be able to make an impact on my family financially, and in other ways too. And that's always been a driver for me, and finding a career that, medical sales offers, a good pay and offers freedom. And so that's really what made, when I was a personal trainer, strength and conditioning, that's what made me make that switch. Because the reason I'm going into depth is I know I have some strength coaches listening to me, because they'll reach out to me on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, I have the same background. I'm an actual coach right now and I'm looking at it. And I get it, like I wanted to break in because when you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week working with these athletes and you're making not even enough to pay your bills and go on vacation, it can be tough, so I totally understand going into that next route. Now once you found medical sales, and you're like, okay, I need to get my foot in the door, what did that process look like? Where'd you start looking? And I know we've said that you found medical sales. Did you start reaching out to people on LinkedIn first and then find medical sales college, or was it medical sales college and then you were finding people through LinkedIn? Because I know we'll talk about, like, when you called me, you had already committed to medical sales college.
yeah.
You were already going. You weren't there yet, but you were going, and we had a talk. But I just would love to hear your process for anybody listening that's, they don't know what medical sales is. They're just looking and they want to find out more.
So honestly, LinkedIn needs to be your best friend.
Yep.
For me, especially talking to Jacob, really motivated me to reach out to more people. I got to a point where I was messaging 20 to 30 people a day.
Yep.
Personalized messages, making it personal, and just reaching out, setting up phone calls, talking to them. Because in them moments when you set up that, let's say you reached out to a regional manager and they seen how proactive you were to reaching out for them. They just so happen to have a job opportunity waiting. And just because you reached out, they offer you a job.
Yep.
Because they like that you were proactive in that sense. So for me, reaching out through LinkedIn is huge. Setting up phone calls is huge. Don't take that. Time is very valuable. Don't just sit around and wait, because it's not going to come to you. Like, you have to work and you have to put the effort in. And like for me, never been given nothing my whole life. Like, I've worked for everything, and nothing's never been easy. But it's what you make of it in that moment. And if you're really passionate about medical device sales, set time every day and message people, talk to people, because that'll go a long way.
I love it. I want to just touch on what you said, because I was the same way. What I want you guys to hear, both of us, is we're both guys who came from strength and conditioning. We know what hard work is, putting in 12, 14-hour days for no money. We know that because that's the world of it, very little money, and passionate people. Like we're both, I would say, very passionate. When that's one of the things I get told all the time is whatever I'm talking about, I'm passionate about. And that was actually during my interview. They're like, how are you so passionate about this product? And I was like, because I've researched, but it doesn't matter what I'm talking about. If I'm into something, I'm passionate about it. I love it because I know it's going to make a difference in someone else's life and my life. But I want you guys to hear that because both things that we've both said, you know, being passionate, working hard, always going in with the mind that you don't deserve anything. Everything is earned, not given. And that's something I think will go so far when you're doing this because there's so many people in this world, not just in medical sales, but in this world who think everything's supposed to be given to them. They deserve it. And once you get that mindset of you don't deserve anything and nothing's yours, life's so much easier. And I'm saying this because Austin and I both landed territory manager positions without going to that associate sales rep. And again, not to sit here and brag, but to sit here and say, I want you guys to hear the difference in the drive. I want you to hear the difference in like the passion, the research, and like he said, reaching out to 20, 30 people a day. Like I tell people all the time when I was on LinkedIn, I would send it till they told me I was spam. I think that's 50 to 100 messages. I don't even know, but it would tell me I would spam, and I would do it at 5 in the morning, and I'd do it at 9 o'clock at night, and I would do it every single day. Setting up those calls, doing everything. So again, Austin, that's a great point. I just want everyone to touch. I touched on that to hear. Like I want you guys to hear the passion in him. I want you to hear the drive, the hustle, and making things happen. Because what he just said happened to me. I reached out to a regional manager who had a spot, not yet, but coming up. He told me to follow up with him every Thursday. I did that for the next 3 months, reached out every Thursday at 8 a.m., sent a message checking on it. Guess who got a job offer once that position came open? But just from sending that message on LinkedIn, showing that I was
That
proactive.
that's funny because the reason I said that is because that's what I did. That's how I got this job. That's how I landed this role, and it was because of that. Just kept being proactive with it and messaging, every other day, making that connection, and ended up giving me a job. So
I love
it
it.
definitely goes a long way. And I want to add something real quick before we move on. Like
Yep.
a quote that really speaks to me that I live by. It doesn't happen to me; it happens for me. And a lot of you, you're going to be told no. You're going to be told that you're not qualified enough. Like it's going to happen. Like that's a must. But in them moments, you got to understand that it's not going to break. It's not meant to break you. It's meant to push you and help you grow. So just stay positive because it's going to be tough. But you have to get your foot in the door, and if you're truly passionate about it, you'll do whatever you have to do to get that.
Yep.
So
And I love what you just said, man. And the thing I want you guys to talk about, me and Austin, both men of faith, and we believe in. But one thing I really believe in is everything happens in my life for a reason, right? Like I didn't get a job. I wasn't supposed to have that job. If I got this job, if there's a teaching moment, like we've all had jobs we hated, but guess what? During jobs you hated, you learned something. And I say that for the reason is the job I landed, which is my dream job, coming in as a TM with a top medical device company, being able to do this. Guess what? If I would have landed the other jobs that I was interviewing for, I would have never had this position. I would have came in as an associate and been somewhere else. Like everything happened perfectly and put me where I was supposed to be. And even right now in the position I am, I know there's so many learning things that I'm supposed to be in here. I'm not supposed to come in and just, know everything because I can't. I'm brand new, but I'm learning as I go. So again, if you go in with that mindset, it can be a roller coaster. Like we'll talk into and we'll dive into, going up and you're like, hey, you're a candidate, and you're like, yes, I'm there. And then they call you 2 days later and they're like, we took an internal candidate and you were on round 3. And like you're back down to the bottom. It's a roller coaster ride through this interview process, but just believing in yourself and knowing you're going to make it, because I promise you, everybody who's listening right now, most people will give up and quit. I've talked to them. After 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, they'll quit because they're tired of it. If this is something you truly want to do and you're passionate about, you just have to stick with it and you'll get in. You'll make those connections. But again, it's never, like Austin stated before this, it's never just going to be given to you. Especially with myself and himself, like him as well. Like when you don't have sales experience, I'm telling you guys this right now, and that's majority of my listeners. If you don't have sales experience, you're going to work 10 times harder than the people who do have sales experience to break in, because you are missing a piece of the puzzle to them. So you have to work harder and you have to do something to make yourself stand out. So I really just want to state on that, because many people I talk to, they're like, I'm just waiting for a job, or I've applied to 6 places. Like, it's not enough. You got to
Yeah.
reach out to, my call and I'm always nice about it. But when people call me on my phone, because I get a lot of calls from this podcast, and it's great. And I love talking to people, but they're like, Jake, I'm just not getting a lot of hits. And I'm like, how many people have you reached out to? I've reached out to 4. And I'm like, reach out to 1,000, call me back. And they're always like taken back. And I always am like, I reached out to 3,000 people. 3,000 people in 6 months. I have a list of 180 people, and I've said this a million times on the podcast, but I just say how many people I reached out to get 4 job offers from top 30 companies, right? Like, it didn't just happen by accident. I didn't just fall into it. I worked my butt off, and God blessed me with the perfect place where I was supposed to be at the time. But it doesn't happen. It's not going to just be given to you. You have to work, and you have to make it happen, and I know that's
Yeah.
what you did, because I know when we talked, and thing I want to touch on as we go into that sequence of now you found medical sales college, you decided to go. I think this is going to bring a lot of value to people who are listening about researching what you're trying to get into when you go to medical sales college. And I say this because when you and me talked, do you remember when I asked you what division you were going in?
Yeah.
It's,
had no clue.
yeah. So tell
Yeah.
them what division you went in.
So originally, I had no clue what I was going into, right? Like, no idea. And what I did through medical sales, it was trauma, orthopedics, and spine. That's the route I went. But what you're going to find out is, you can get in there and you'll be like, I like none of these. I don't like any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So you could end up doing something totally different when you're finished with the school or whatever it may be. For me, I went more of the ortho route. That's something I'm really interested in and passionate about. And it just is something that really touched me. Me being an athlete, well, an ex-athlete now. um, I've dealt with a lot of injuries. I understand the body, the knee, and it's something that I really was drawn to. So that's why I went that route. But for anyone listening, you like really do your research and like don't just set your mind on one particular route.
Yep.
Like be open to it all, research it all, and have your own opinion about it. Don't just do it because you see someone else doing it. Because if you don't like it, then why do it? There's so many different routes you can take when it comes to medical device sales.
Awesome. I love that, man. I want everybody to hear what he just said. Make your own opinion on it. So many times we get told what we should be doing by our parents, by other people, they like it, but you got to realize, just because a dude off LinkedIn says he loves ortho, you may do ortho and you're like, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you only know by talking and experiencing it, like we talked about. And the thing I really want to just touch on is, like, I just remember the reason why research is important is when we had our first conversation, you had just told me you were thinking about going into medical sales. You were leaving Notre Dame, and you told me, I'm going into trauma for the class. And I remember asking you, do you know what trauma is, what that lifestyle looks like? And your answer was no
Yeah.
idea. And that was it's a great learning moment in that, because I just say this is, if you guys don't know what trauma life is like, it's not 9 to 5. It's 24 hours on call. You have no life. When there's an accident at 3 a.m, you're going in and doing that call at 3 a.m. If you're on a date at 8 o'clock at night, guess what? That date's over. You're going in and you're being with that surgeon. And there's not a lot of sleepless nights. Like, that's the reason I tell people to do the research, because it's also the division will also impact your pay. Like, some people in pacemakers and trauma, the high reps, they might be making over 500K, but again, there's a trade-off of maybe they've done it for 15 years and they've had no work-life balance. It's just work all the time,
Yeah.
compared to someone else who might be in a smaller division. Maybe they make 150, 200,000, but they're done by 5 every day. They don't work on the weekends, like, that's why I'm so big on doing your research. And the biggest thing is how you do your research. Reach out to people doing the job, because they're going to tell you all the good, the bad, and their experience. And like Austin said, don't just listen to one person and make that opinion for everything. You got to talk to a bunch because, I say this all the time. I talk to a lot of reps who are really rude to me and they're like, why do you want to be in this? This place sucks. Like medical device isn't even worth it. And then I broke in and 3 months later, I see they're not even in the industry anymore. They had a negative mindset about it and they were out. So that's why it's so important to form your own opinion on it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I love it, man. Okay, so then we get into medical sales college. Now you're trying to break in. You're trying to get yourself a job. How many interviews did you go through?
Oh, so this is where it gets interesting. So I went through at least, I'll say 40 interviews. I started applying my second week into medical sales college. I was told by the teachers, and I would talk to them, you need to wait till you're done the last week, blah, 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 blah. But, I knew networking is huge. And that goes back to what we just said. You need to start reaching out. You need to start applying. And that's what I did. I was getting interviews in the third week, and it just kept stringing along the whole way through the course. And, for instance, I would have classmates ask me, how are you getting these interviews? And I would go back to networking. Like just a lot of people, they want the job, but they're not willing to put in the work to get it. Like you have to make time. You have to be proactive, and like time's very valuable. Like if you just sit around and wait, it's going to be 2 months, 3 months later, and now they're not hiring right now. So then you're out for another 6 months. So time is very valuable, and you need to really take advantage of every moment to be networking. Sure.
I love it, man. And I tell people this. You and me had this exact same talk. I've said it to every person who's ever called me. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Being a personal trainer, I've trained a lot of millionaires, and they never once told me they hired someone because of a resume. They hired them because they knew the person, they liked them, or somebody they knew liked that person. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. And this is why we always talk about LinkedIn networking, because if you are learning from them, right, you're getting your own information. But also, if they like you, guess what happens? They tell somebody about you who has a job. Like I tell people this all the time. You know what the first thing the regional manager does when a job comes open? They either are looking for their own people that they personally know, or they go down to their reps and say, hey, we're having this associate come open. Do you guys have any recommendations? Or they call their other manager friends. Hey, we're looking. Do you know of anybody? And guess what? When you're being Austin and you're reaching out to hundreds of people and they hear the drive and they hear how hungry Austin is and how he moved across country and made this commitment, they're like, yeah, I got a kid. And then the text is, hey, Austin, shoot me your resume. I got a possible opportunity for you. And then just snowball effect from there.
Yeah, and I want to touch on one more thing as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they feel because they did medical sales that they're above someone else who hasn't done it, right? It does take commitment. It does take sacrifice to do that. But, it's also, you have to understand that that person who didn't do it, they could be working just as hard, right? And it's funny because I've had a lot of talks with a lot of people, even classmates, and they feel because they've done medical sales, they're above everyone else. It doesn't work like that. You have to set yourself apart by how you work and who you talk to. Medical sales college ain't going to set you apart. It's not.
I appreciate you saying that, man, because we actually just had, we had Lauren on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and she said the exact same thing. And I said that because I reached out. I had a lot of people tell me I should go to medical sales college, right? And me being the cheap dude I am, I'm like, I couldn't see the value of $14K when I was like, they're going to still have to network and do everything I'm doing now with $14K into debt. So, and I tell people, you know how many people called me from medical sales college who graduated, who like, I reached out to 3 people and I had reached out to 2,000 at their point, and I had already had 10 interviews and they had 0. Like what you just said, the company, or that doesn't define you. It's how hard you're willing to work. Now, again, if you're in it and you're working that hard, maybe it shows you that you're even more committed. That's the talk I've had as well. But again, that has been something I've been told by managers when I was reaching out and I asked, should I go to medical sales college, to these managers? A lot of them would say no, because I think that their comment, again, this was several. I'm not just saying it was one. I'm not saying it's right or wrong either, but they would be like, they're spoiled brats, because they're thinking that they paid $14K, that they're just getting a job handed to them, that they're going to get done, and that they don't have to do the work. And like almost every single manager, they want the opposite of that. They want someone who's knocking on the doors, who's like being you. Because guess what, Austin, I'm pretty sure now that you're in medical sales, you have to reach out to people you don't know, get conversation, and get meetings start going so you can make a sale.
Oh
Just
yeah,
taking, just taking a guess.
in services, definitely calling every day, going face to face. Like it's a never ending process. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to go into clinics. You have to get in front of doctors. That's just part of it. And I want to touch on one more thing as well. Stating back to what we just said,
Mm-hmm.
out of all the interviews I had, like I said, I had 40, maybe more. Um, it was never they were never really interested because I went to medical sales. It was always because I was an ex-athlete. You know, medical sales didn't really stand out to them. They would have my resume. They wouldn't really say much about it. You know, they understand that I went and got a foundation, but like I said, I already had that foundation from school before
Yep.
my bachelor's. So like you may have a business you own or um, uh, a job you sell stuff at. That'll help you stand out. Medical sales alone, like the college, not it won't necessarily help. I mean, in some cases it may, but in
Mm-hmm.
all cases, no, it won't.
Yeah. And I always say this because sometimes it can come off like I'm like always hating on medical sales
Yeah,
college. And I don't want it to come off that way. I just always think if you're a driven person, if you're someone who's especially ex-athletes, right? They want ex-athletes because they know you're driven, you went through some crap, you had to bounce back, you had to go through adversity. I would save your money and go get that. Same thing. If you had a business, you started a business, you went through some adversity, you bounced back, you were able to make sales, they want that. You don't need a piece of paper to say that you're worthy enough. You can prove it by your actions. But with that said, like I always say, maybe medical sales is your jump. Maybe it's your step of your commitment. Maybe it's the right reason for you. Again, I always say this on the podcast. There's no right or wrong. It's just what's right for you. You know what I mean? Like, some people it's going to be very beneficial. For some people, like for me, it never was going to be beneficial because I already knew. I'm talking to people doing it. I'm working 30 times harder than them and I'm getting interviews, and they've been out for 3 months and their whole class hasn't even got one interview, and they're all
yeah,
crying because they can't get a job. And here I'm doing job interviews with no sales experience.
it's definitely different from with everyone, because obviously everyone's going to have different experience, and some may have no experience at all when it comes to anatomy. So in that case, medical sales is very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, people who have no background, definitely like go for it.
I love
Sure.
that. Yeah. And so now going into the next part of, hey, what did you feel like you did to make yourself stand out between those interviews and getting the other candidates? Because like I tell everyone, you're never going to get the first job you apply to. That if you do, congratulations, you're an anomaly. That doesn't happen. But like you're going to go through all these interviews. What did you feel like was different between the first time and those last times when you started going to the final round of the interviews and being able to close and like get that job?
So for me, it was more so about making it clear what I was bringing to the table for them. A lot of time in interviews, we just go answer questions and not really say what we're going to bring to the table. I took advantage when I was being interviewed, and I was telling them what they were going to be getting, who they were going to be getting, and what I've done in the past. I've wrote books. I've had 2 businesses. It shows. I'm a go getter. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I want it, I'm gonna get it, and I just make it clear that what they're going to be getting if they choose me, and like it won't be a mistake. So my biggest advice when you are interviewing, just make sure you tell them, like, make it clear what they'll be getting. You know.
I love that, man. That's so good. And the thing I just want to touch on is when I talk to people all the time, what I bring up is I when you're going to do an interview with a company, I always tell people think about a relationship. Maybe it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever your significant other is. Do you want to be with someone who's super needy, or do you want to be someone who's confident in themselves and gonna and doesn't need you all the time? And what I mean by that, if you're going into a job interview and you're like, I need this job, this is my only offer, I need to make it, you now become that needy person who just, hey, gimme, 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 gimme. Instead of every single job interview, especially those last 4 that I started to get the job offers, it was always like, hey, first off, I'm getting other offers. You're not my only one. I have opportunities elsewhere. But like, this is why I believe I would be a good fit for you. And I want to make sure that you're a good fit for me. Making sure that it's kind of that reversed of like what you said, make sure you know what you're bringing to the table and they see that, but also making sure that they have to sell to you. because with a company, it's a relationship. You got to work for a company you really love. And so you got to make sure it's a good fit for you. So that's my advice to you. If you guys are listening, you're getting those interviews, it's got to be a two-way street. It can't be like, I just want, because if you're coming off that needy, or they're like, he just, give him a couple more interviews, or give him a couple more years. You want it to be like, again, like I say, you and me both similar. I came in, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna turn it around. I don't care what anybody says. I've been told to get the out of places. I've been told to go off. Like, they've said some specific like things to me, and you know what I say? Smile, awesome, cool, on to the next one. And they
Yep.
want to see that, and I know that's the exact same way you are. And again, why you landed such a high position with no prior sales experience. So again, I just want people to hear that.
I actually want to touch on that. It all comes down, let's say someone takes a chance on you. They believe in you. They see what you bring to the table for them. Like you said, make sure who you're working for, it's going to be enjoyable for you as well. Make sure they're bringing something for you. Because if you're in a one-way street and you're not happy, then you're just not going to produce like you should. If you have people behind you that believes in you, it's like friends, good friends.
Yep.
Like Jacob, for instance, talking to him, with us going back and forth, it motivates me. I motivate him.
Mm-hmm.
Same as a job. You have people behind you who believe in you and push you. It's going to make you go that much harder. And on days you don't feel, like doing that extra call or doing that extra 3 in services, whatever it may be. You have people behind you to push you, and that's what it comes down to. Working for someone that you believe in and they believe in you. So
I love that, man. And I will say that's just a huge part for me, is like, that's why I chose the position I did with the company I did. My manager went out on a limb for me, and they were putting their job on the line to try to bring in someone with no sales experience, probably just like yourself. And when you have somebody who's doing that, like, I was always like, first off, I'm not going to let me fail, but I'm not going to let someone else fail who's taking a shot on me. I'll work a million hours before I let me fail for them, because now their name's on the line for me. That was something that drove me. And even again, like you said, having a great team. Like, I have an amazing team that I can text everybody on my team, and they encourage me, they help me, they do stuff. Compared to, I know there's teams that it's everyone for themselves, and a lot of times when it's like that, they don't stay very long because it's hard to go. And again, we're in this all together. So again, I love the message that you just said right there, is finding that place where it's going to work for both you. And it drives you, because, like, as we all know, once you break into these days, or break into this job, you guys, there's always more that you can do, but there's also it's pretty easy to call it. You could be done and be like, I did 3 calls and I did some couple cases, and I'm going to just call it an early Tuesday, and that's not going to change anything. That's not going to make that territory start moving. So I love that you went there, Austin. I appreciate that.
yeah, for sure.
And now, just really quick to start getting into it. So you are a TM now, man. You're in the industry. Can you just kind of give us your first? I know you're brand new, but kind of your first thoughts on, hey, what's it like now that you're in it? Because like I tell everybody, you think it's one thing, you get in, and you actually really learn what it is about. So would love to just hear your experience this far, and like any feedback you would tell someone who maybe they're listening to this and they just got a job, or they're about to interview and close a job. What should they expect for the next steps once they break in?
So for any company, you are going to go through more training. It's similar to medical sales college, as far as, with COVID now, they do a lot of it through Zoom. That was for me, for instance. But, my first weekend, I hit 120 clinics, talked to 100 and probably 130, 140 doctors alone my first weekend. Killed some sales, did good. But you have to understand that these doctors really care about their patients. So you have to be prepared. Like, they're gonna hit you with tough questions. They're gonna hit you with some questions like, whoa, but you have to think on your feet. And you have to be ready, and that comes from preparation, studying the products. Studying kind of some questions you may think you may receive that are in depth. Be ready for that. But it all comes down to preparation. That's my big advice to anyone. Your first week, your first months into a new job, like, preparation is huge.
Yep. And I always just tell people, oh, sorry, I'm just getting some feedback. But I always just tell people, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, you don't know until you get asked that hard question by that doctor that one time, and then you have no answer, and you have a decision. You can either bull crap, which they're going to know, and now you're that rep who doesn't tell the truth and you're just telling them what they want to hear. Or you can be like, hey, I'm so sorry. I actually don't know that, but I will find out and I will for sure get you that answer right away as soon as I know. You know what I mean? And like you said, though, is it's preparation, man. You're going to get asked. Everything's brand new to you. And this is the thing I always try to tell people. If you're working with doctors that have been in there for 20 years, guess what? They've seen a lot of different stuff and they can talk about a lot of different things. When you've been in there for 3 weeks, you don't know what half the words they're saying. And you got to
Yeah.
be fast. You got to pick it up and you got to start. That's why having a team that you can rely on that have been there for a while, they can help you. They can help catch you up to speed. Because otherwise, like you said, it's all preparation, but like it's so much information. It's all brand new and you're never just going to stop learning. You got to respond. And like you said, when you get asked, you got to be able to think on your feet, come up with those answers and keep going to the next one. Cause like you said, I can guarantee out of 140 doctors, not all 140 said yes. So you just got to
Yeah.
keep moving on and keep rolling.
It's a numbers game for sure. And touching on that, you have to be honest because they will call your BS quick. And word travels very quick, and that can mess up all your business. So be truthful. And if you don't know something, say you don't know, write the question down, find it out, get back to them. I've had some questions asked I didn't know the answer to, but I wrote that question down, got back to them that day, and they appreciated that. So be truthful.
Love that, man. Yeah, it always goes a big way. So can you please just give our listeners the last thing is advice to anyone breaking in, whether it's someone who's listening, I have people just this week, I talked to somebody, they're already in sales, but they're trying to break in. Talk to someone who has no sales experience. They feel discouraged. They want to break in. What are you saying to somebody who's going to reach out? And again, we'll tag all your stuff here soon, but what would be your advice to someone who's like, hey, I want to do medical device. They're past that point of, I think I want to do it. I want to learn more about it, right? If you don't know what it is, go back to the last 20 episodes, listen to it, reach out to people, you'll find out what it is. But if they're like, hey, I'm ready to break in, what's your advice to anyone?
So first and foremost, like we talked about, networking, that's huge. But you also have to understand that medical device sales, it's pretty much all gas, no brakes. Like you have to be willing to go the extra mile for doctors, for yourself, preparation, in your company. Like you have to if you want to do well in this field, because nothing's going to be given to you. No job's going to be given to you. You have to believe in yourself. Know that you're valuable. You have a lot of value, but you have to believe in that for yourself, for someone else to see that through you. And that's really my big advice. And it also comes down to sacrifice. Are you going to sacrifice going out? Let's say you're going out on the weekend, right? Can you sacrifice that to do some more networking? That's what it came down for me. Just sacrifice. That's a big factor, and just taking the time to make them connections and apply to jobs.
I love that, man. And what I really want to state from what you just said there, it's a quote that made me think, man. And I listen to a lot of motivational videos, but one of the videos I heard is everybody wants an above average life, but they want to put in the average work ethic, right? And one thing I remember hearing, it was I'm pretty sure it was Kobe, but I think it was him, but it might have been someone else. But it was everybody wants that like work life balance. They want to be perfect. They want perfect. Like if you're trying to be great at something, there's no balance. You know what I mean? Like you're working, you're making sacrifices, you're not out drinking every night with your buddies. You're not, doing all these things because you're trying to make a sacrifice for what you're going to do. And what you just said made me hit that. And I want to touch this to the listeners. Everybody calls me, I want a 9-to-5 job. Well, I've had this talk with a lot of people. If you're wanting a 9-to-5 job, be okay with making a 9-to-5 job salary. Go find a 9-to-5 job and be okay making 50, 60K a year. If you're trying to find a job, the reason people want to do medical device sales and they hear $1, $2, $3, $500,000, guess what? You're working more than the average person because you're making more than the average person. You know what I mean? That's just something that I'm super passionate about, no matter where you're at in life. And again, it doesn't come down to money. Maybe it's you want to be great at fitness. You know what? You're going to have to, if you want to get better shape, you're going to have to sacrifice on food and you're going to have to work out more than the average person who doesn't have abs. You know what I mean? Like no matter what we do in our life, it's sacrifice, but there's so many times people want to find this balance. And again, I'm important on like, hey, I want to have fun, but I also want to be serious. But I just want to say that to the listeners. If you guys are looking for that, I just want an easy life, I don't think this is the career for you. And I want to state that right now, because it's not. Like you heard Austin, it's go, go, go. There's always something more I can be doing to push my territory. There's always something more I can do, more networking, something that's going to be getting it. And you have to be okay with handling that. And again, this is why I tell people, there's a reason medical device reps get paid more than the average person. There's a lot of stress that comes with it. There's a lot of things that you can't talk about like that actually happens with it, because it's you're getting paid more, so you need to be able to perform more. And that's just the way of the world. So I just wanted to state that, because what you just said, Austin, was something that I hear all the time, and I really just want to be passionate about and tell everybody, like, if you're trying to have an above average life, you're going to have to do a lot above average than everybody else. You're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to make bigger sacrifices. You're going to have to do things that most people would do or maybe laugh at and don't understand. And I say that because as someone who's very type A personality, like I get told a lot, even by family, Jake, you work too much. Like you're doing a job plus a side hustle plus a podcast plus other. It's just who I am. Like you said, I want to have as much impact on someone's life that I can. And there's sacrifices that maybe I make to my social life. Maybe I don't drink anymore. Like I barely drink. Because I can't afford not waking up at 5 a.m. some days. Like my days start at 4 a.m. and they go till 9 p.m. Like if you're trying to make an impact or you're trying to be above average, no matter if it's your career, your relationships, whatever you're trying to do in life, it's going to take sacrifice. And apologize for going on that rant, but you saying that, man, just made so many questions that I get asked all the time, where people want to slide by and do the bare minimum to make the most amount of money. And guess what? If that's your mindset, that's a losing mindset, and you're not going to win at life. Because what you need to think is, I need to go above and beyond, and eventually that will pay off. And I was just
Yes.
saying, I say this because I just actually had a talk with an owner, and what we think is most employees think I do the bare minimum to get paid the most, and that's how I'm going to work. And the business owners or people who are paying you, if you're not working the hardest, they're not going to pay you more, because they're like, why the heck would I pay you more? You're barely doing what I'm asking now. And so it's when you would go above and beyond, you work harder, you make those sacrifices, guess what? Good stuff happens. So
Yep.
that's just my advice to anybody listening. Again, this isn't even for medical device sales. This is anything you do in life. If you're trying to be great, you're going to have to make sacrifices, and you're going to have to do things that most people won't understand.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on the deep end either, real quick, but cutting corners, it's not going to help you in any way. But you may cut a corner, it might help you short term, but long term, it's going to bite you back in the butt, 100%. But I also want to say, life is going to knock you down. It's going to be tough. You're going to get told no. You're going to lose. You're going to lose a lot. That's part of life. It's messy at times, but it's how you learn from that and grow from that and move forward. I'm big. I always say keep moving forward. That's like my thing. I tell myself that every day. If I'm going through something, keep moving forward. Because you are stronger than you think, and if you want it, like we talked about, you'll go get it and make it happen. Life's too short, so why settle with just average or good enough? That's scary. That's scary, man.
I love that. Yeah, and again, I think we get it because we're the athletes, like always driving better, strength and conditioning. I get that, man. I love it. Again, maybe this rubs some people the wrong way, but again, like we laugh because we're super passionate dudes. We don't care what other people think when it comes to like being average. We're trying to make impact on the world. We're trying to, be the best humans that we can be. And again, like I say, there's no right or wrong for anybody. It's just individuals. And when you can find someone, as you can tell, really enjoy being with Austin, because we think alike, we have a mindset like each other, that we want the best and the most out of our lives that we're trying to get. And again, I hope that's you too. I hope that's whoever's listening. I hope you want the most out of your life. I hope you are wanting to do more than just the average person, because again, we only get one life and one opportunity at this fun run. But going into it to end us again, Austin, thank you so much for being on here, man. But I want to tag you because you got quite the TikTok, that you got some followers. So I want you to share, where can these guys find you at, man?
So on Instagram, Austin Mayo 21. That's my Instagram tag. Just go give me a follow. I have my TikTok in there as well. I post daily motivational content on there. For anyone going through hard times or difficult situations in life, I really try to put the best messages out there from personal experiences or whatever it may be to help y'all. It ain't about me. My life's about how it can impact and serve others. So if you're needing motivation, just go check out my TikTok page, and Hopefully it can have some type of impact on you.
I love that, man. I love that. And again, that's why I always enjoy having you on. I know you're in here for with your heart and where you're trying to be and trying to make that impact on everybody's life. So again, you guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and Austin. Uh, just hopefully give you guys some value. Maybe we rambled on and you're like these fools, especially me. I know I don't shut up, so you guys always are getting a full run when I'm here. But I appreciate you guys always tuning in, always following along. If you guys haven't, please press that like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you guys are on the podcast, please leave us that 5-star review because again, it's just how we have impact. It's how we grow the channel, how I am able to reach more people and teach them about this beautiful and awesome career that has so much impact and can and make it change your life. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And if you haven't, I always just like to talk about that ebook that I just produced that again, it goes into depth of what I did to break in, you guys. Like Austin said, it goes into networking. It goes into my business plan, my 30, 60, 90, my brag book. It goes into the messages I sent to people to get job offers from the top 30 companies in the medical device world. So if you guys are interested and you want a little more in depth, you can find that at newtomedicaldevicesales.com or what's in the link in the description link. But again, I appreciate you guys always tuning in. I hope you got some value for this. And again, Austin, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.